Welcome everyone, my name is Rigel and welcome to another episode of my series Rigel's Random Reports. Now, it's still not living up to its name. It's still really not random because it's coming out at the end of each month. And I really wanted to record an episode 2 weeks ago, I would say, but on the day I was supposed to record, I just got really sick. I was sneezing a lot. I had a runny nose. So even the universe doesn't want this series to be random. So there's that. But in any case, in each episode, I'll be going through basically the news relating to Eurovision from since the last time I recorded, which in this case was late January. So this episode is basically going to cover a lot of the news that happened for February, and then after that I'll be taking a look at the odds and then also reporting a little bit on the current selections that are ongoing or soon to take place, and finally we'll be taking a look at what lies ahead for Eurovision in the near future. So with that said, let's get right into the video. As usual, let's get into the basic information first, of which there really isn't that much to talk about because most of the stuff was already known last month. But we'll get through that quickly before addressing this thing in the bottom right corner. The host country is Switzerland because they won last year. The host city is Basel. The host arena is the St. Jakobshalle. And the presenters are Hazel Brugger, Sandra Stüder, and Michelle Hunziker, the latter of which will only present in the grand final. And there is a slogan, quote unquote, because despite the EBU adopting the permanent slogan of United by Music, it seems that the Swiss broadcaster has decided to adopt their own unofficial slogan of Welcome Home. We've been able to see that slogan on multiple things now, not least in the presentation video of the official Eurovision 2025 mascot. This mascot is called Lumo. It was apparently designed by a student at the Basel Academy of Art and Design. And no offense to the person who designed this, but surely someone would have told them that this design looks suspiciously AI generated, right? I don't know if it is. I don't want to sling baseless allegations like this, but that art style is unfortunately associated with AI generation. And if you're someone who's working or studying anyhow in art and design, it's really not a good look if you make something and people think it's AI generated, right? But yeah, this does look AI generated, and it's from what I can tell, it's a heart with massive eyes and a mouth and arms and legs and ginger hair somehow. I understand nothing about how this relates to the contest, with the exception of the hearts thing. But they showed some of the kind of runner-ups as well, and those, I think, looked quite a bit better. Nonetheless, this is the official mascot. I actually talked about the possibility of Eurovision 2025 having a mascot in the last episode of this, and yeah, well, we now have one. This is about my 7th or 8th take already, because in the last few takes I would just look at this and start laughing in the middle of sentence, and it's just hilarious. And if all goes well, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna make this the thumbnail of the video as well, if nothing else to get a little bit more attention to it. But yeah, this is the very interesting mascot for Eurovision 2025, which I'm sure will be repeatedly adored and mentioned by Eurofans far and wide. So yeah, that is that. We've got a mascot, but otherwise we really don't have much other than the Swiss broadcaster adopting their own slogan to sort of mess with the EBU. But other than that, not much else. with that, let's take a look at what has happened since the last episode that I recorded. Now, if you did watch the previous episodes, you'll know that this section is where I basically cover the events that I already covered in the previous episode in the What's Next section. And I'll be looking at those in this section here and basically telling my past self what actually did happen with the things that I outlined. And for February, the theme is pretty much national finals, lots of Super Saturdays and all that. And we're near the end of that, but we're not complete yet. But for now, let's take a look at what actually did happen with the national finals, starting with Greece, because I recorded on, I think it was the 28th last month, and at that point, the Greek national final had not yet really happened yet, but now it has happened, and I correctly predicted that it was Claudia versus Evangelia, and in the end, Evangelia lost, and actually came second to Claudia by 2 points. So unfortunately, we will have to endure Evangelia talking about Eurovision for at least another year, if not more than that. In fact, she's already gone on Greek TV saying that she will apply next year. So, yeah, get ready for that, I suppose. But in the meantime, we have a lovely vocalist in Claudia. Her vocals are fantastic. Although the staging I thought was a little bit weird, because why would you have your dancers line up in this sort of S shape? But the song is good, and a lot of people say that it reminds them of the 2018 entry that didn't qualify. I can't remember its name, but a lot of people say it reminds them of that, which was a kind of local fan favorite. And hopefully this year they're looking to avenge the result of that entry. So that is Greece. Moving on to EMA. From Slovenia, of course, which the inevitable kind of happened. It was Clayman versus July Jones in the final, or the super final, rather. And, Clayman won easily because no one knows who July Jones is, and judging by some of the comments that I was reading, Slovenia does seem to be a little bit more conservative than a lot of their government actions seem to suggest. So, Clayman, being a pretty well-known personality in Slovenia, easily won the super final, and now he's going to Eurovision. There was a little bit of controversy surrounding a video that he released immediately afterwards, where he effectively tried to put on like outfits and stuff to pretend like the different winners of Eurovision in the 21st century, and he was wearing blackface for the Estonian entry from 2001, and that caused a bit of controversy, and later he re-uploaded the video with the blackface blurred out. But there's still a little bit of controversy going around. Dave Benton himself, for the part, said that he was not offended, but other people, especially other Eurofans of African descent, were still offended by it. So it's a whole mess. I'm not really at liberty to comment on it, but that is just something that happened. But like it or not, Clayman is representing Slovenia in the Eurovision Song Contest 2025. Moving on to Eurosong from Belgium. I think I said in the last episode it was Red Sebastian versus Montisa, or Mentisa. Turns out it is actually pronounced Mentisa. I thought it was Red Sebastian versus Mentisa, and in the end there really wasn't any contest or competition. Mentisa didn't even get second place. I think she actually got fourth or something like that, because she got practically zero staging. There were just a bunch of dancers following her around. Meanwhile, Red Sebastian got pyro, got an entire elevated platform, super sharp camera cuts. Yeah, I'm pretty sure the Belgian broadcaster wanted Red Sebastian to win, so yeah, he did. And he's representing Belgium in Eurovision 2025. That's kind of about it. No one's really talked about Red Sebastian since then, and Belgium's actually dropped in the odds ever since the performance, which is kind of interesting, but we'll actually get to the odds in a moment. But for now, let's move on to Benidorm Fest, where that was actually won by Melody with the song Essa Diva. Um, the understanding is that Melody has a lot of very I don't want to say it like that, but very rabid fans. They just go out and vote for her en masse. In fact, this happened on the Eurovision World page, and they actually disabled a lot of the spam votes, but it still ended up coming in really strong. So, Benidorm Fest was won by a lot of people obsessively voting for a Melody. There's really not much to talk about there. For Azerbaijan, they announced their artist, which was Mama Gama. You might remember that name if you've been in the fandom for a little bit, because they were actually on the short list in 2023, I believe, which they eventually lost to Tyral X or Tyral X, I can't remember, the twins, who were singing on like heart pedestals or something like that. But they're back, and actually they won this election this time, so they will be representing Azerbaijan. That's really about it. Moving on to Eurosong from Ireland. The big favorite in the fan community was Bobby Arlo. However, on the day of, Bobby actually reportedly just had a bad voice, like she completely lost her voice. For my part, I thought she sounded okay in her performance during the national final, but she didn't have as favorable a running order position, I would say, and it was actually the national final was actually won by Emmy, and if that sounds familiar to you, that is the exact same Emmy who was in MGP 2021 with the song Witchwoods. And yes, this means that a Norwegian is representing Ireland with a song that's mostly written by Norwegians with a singular Irish songwriter in there, which is why this was allowed to enter the national final to begin with. And her song is called Like a Party. Not like a party, but rather Laika, the dog that was sent to space during Soviet times. So, it's a weird situation all around, and hopefully we'll see Bobby Arlo back in the Irish national selection sometime soon. Moving on to Vidbir in Ukraine, the winners were Zifferblatt. Now, I did mention them as a potential winner because they were by far the most popular in the selection, but I did also mention Masha Kondratenko and Hayat, who were also in the selection. And Hayat has previously come second in the selection as well, so there was hype surrounding that as well. But for some reason, I think duo or a group called Molody, they randomly got second place. No one was hyping them whatsoever, but they got second place in any case. Meanwhile, Masha Kondratenko had an interesting performance, let's just say. Her dancers were holding like models of babies for some reason. I don't really understand it, but it was a little bit off-putting, a little bit creepy to me. But she sounded good for what it was worth, and my personal favorite performance of the night was probably Hayat. He sounded good, the song was good, and he really got down there when the dance break, or just the drop came. He just danced really well, and I think it was a really slick performance all around. Although I'm not really complaining about Zifferblatt going to Eurovision because, from what I understand, the members of the band are themselves great, strong Euro fans as well. They've been posting like TikToks of them reacting to other countries' entries, and so I'm not really complaining. But my personal favorite was actually Hayat on the night, followed by Masha Kondratenko, and then after that Zifferblatt, and then after that I did not watch any other performances. Moving on to UMK in Finland, of course, and the inevitable did happen, but in this case it was a good inevitable, which was Erika Wikman winning the selection and finally representing Finland after losing the selection 5 years ago. Now, this was all expected, but I will say the staging was kind of empty. The only real staging was really her and also the levitating microphone thing. So yeah, people are talking about the possibilities of this winning the contest, and I'll be honest, I find that a little bit challenging, especially because the song doesn't have much of a memorable hook compared to a lot of the other songs that tend to do very well in the televote, even including something like Cha Cha Cha. But actually, moving away from Eurovision for a second, I want to talk about Goldilocks. Goldilocks effectively started out in the national final as an unknown because she was actually working a lot in Berlin, I believe, or in Germany, anyhow. And actually, in the vlog that she did for UMK, she said that she was basically just moving back to Finland, just as she got the announcement that she was going to be in UMK. So yeah, life was a bit hectic for her. And actually, on the night, she lost her voice. She couldn't even talk at the press conference that was held right before the national final. But they actually just replayed her vocals that were recorded on a rehearsal. So she still sounded okay. Certainly, it did to me just watching at home. I don't know about the arena, but you can tell, actually, I would argue, more than Erika, that this was staged by Sergio Jaén, the person who staged Doomsday Blue last year and was now responsible for the entirety of UMK. You can tell from Goldilocks' performance that she really used Sergio Jaén's creative potentials to the maximum, because there were some really, really slick camera angles. There were like body doubles, and even the background LED was very, very carefully aligned, such that when the camera went through the ring, it would only capture the thing inside. I don't know, it's hard to explain with just words, but you gotta watch the performance. It was done very tastefully, very sharply, slickly, etc., etc. So yeah, with all of that in mind, it's actually quite surprising now, despite the fact that she's an unknown in Finland. She still got 303 points in the end, and in comparison, Erika only got 430, so it really wasn't a sweep at all. And actually, the points that Goldilocks got, 303, was more than double of the runner-ups after her, which were Vivi and Nelly Matula. So they got 138 points each. Incidentally, the first time, I think, that we have had two contestants tie in UMK, but yeah, they both got less than half the points of Goldilocks. So yeah, that was a really effective staging, and really I hope that Goldilocks returns to UMK one day and goes to Eurovision when there isn't a name as significant as Erika Wikman, but we'll just have to see what happens there. Moving on to Supernova, of course, that's the Latvian national final, and it was won by Tautumeitas. Now, this was interesting because one of the big favorites in the national final were the Ludwig with the song Legal. And a lot of people assumed that they would win, and actually, from what I understand, he actually did win the televote, but the jury actually tanked him, and tanked him so hard, in fact, that he didn't even reach the top three, which were going to be the three that were announced on stage during the live broadcast. So the Ludwig actually came fourth, I think, because the jury tanked him so hard, and eventual top three was actually in order Tautometas, Emilia, and Citizeni. So it's a very interesting result, and the Ludwig actually kind of took to social media to complain about the results, about how even though he had won the televote, actually, my understanding is that by quite a margin as well. It was like, I want to say 30%, because they show the televote percentages live during the broadcast, which is a thing that only Supernova really does. But they were showing that during the broadcast, and the Ludwig was at like 30 something percent every time they showed it. So it's an easy thing to assume that the Ludwig actually did win the televote, but they were just tanked to oblivion by the jury. So, yeah, the Ludwig will not be representing Latvia in Eurovision 2025, but instead Tautometas will be doing that with the song Burman Laimi. I believe that is what it's called. And it's a pretty good song, and I always like to compare it to that act from Croatia a few years back, Harmonia Dissonante, which were six ladies who were absolutely not coordinated at all. But Tautometas are similar, but they do actually know how to coordinate with one another. So yeah, I would actually say this is a pretty respectable entry for Latvia, and it's also completely in Latvian, which is a nice development as well. And I believe that is the first entry completely in Latvian since the early 2000s. So that is a pretty significant development right there. Now, moving on to Malta, where we had the national final MESC. I predicted that it would be cont'd versus cont'd, and that's not really true, actually. In the end, it was cont'd versus Heaven Sent, because, in case you didn't know, Heaven Sent is a song that's co-written by none other than Thea. Yes, the Thea from Thea and Selena, but that song actually got a really good score in the jury. However, cont'd just got a really big televote, I think, and so balancing everything, it was cont'd that actually won the whole thing in total, and so, as expected, really, cont'd will be representing Malta in Eurovision 2025. And don't get me wrong, I really enjoy the staging. It's a lot of fun, I guess. The whole gym balls, or whatever they're called, the exercise balls, them bouncing on them and stuff like that. It's a fun show. However, I've said this before, I just don't like the song. But the expected happened. cont'd will be representing Malta in Eurovision 2025, a rather worthy entry to represent them, if I do say so myself. Moving on to Poland, where, again, the expected did actually happen, and Justyna actually did win the national final for once with her song Gaia. And a lot of people noted the similarities between Gaia and her previous entry, which I can't remember the name of now, but it was still a lot of the similar outfits, a lot of the similar staging, even dancing, stuff like that. But Justyna finally won the national final, and she will now represent Poland in Eurovision 2025, 30 years on from her previous participation. Not only 30 years, actually, 30 years to the day, because the semifinal that Poland is in is exactly 30 years to the day from the semifinal, or whatever it was, in 1995 that took place with Justyna and her previous song. And so if it's not a coincidence, a cosmic coincidence, might I add, I don't know what is. And for what it's worth, Svada and Nichos also got a very respectable result. They came in second, and with pretty good amount of points as well. So yeah, they weren't tanked or anything. They got a good result at the end of it. So yeah, that is Poland. I would say a relatively peaceful result at the end of that, considering everything. But obviously, there's still more national finals. So yeah, let's get into those as well. Continuing with the next batch of national finals, we move on to Estilal from Estonia. And once again, the inevitable did happen. And Tommy Cash won the national final with no real competition, although in the super final with him were Andrei Zevakin and also Ann Marlen. As a supporter of Minimal Wind myself, I wanted to see Minimal Wind in the final, or the super final rather. However, they weren't really even close. I think they were like 6th or 7th or something like that. They just kind of flopped. Yeah, I still think it wasn't deserved, but I can see why it happened. I mean, Elizabeth Tiffany didn't really sound all that great. She was running around way too much. Although I did like some of the camera angles and stuff like that. However, it just wasn't, I would say, as tastefully done as their previous attempt. So hopefully they come up with something a little bit more distinctive, I would say, for next time they plan on coming to Estilal, if they do plan on doing that at all. But yeah, nonetheless, it was an entry that I enjoyed. I'm just sad that it didn't get into the super final. And Tommy Cash won again with really no actual competition whatsoever. Recently, he and Yost stirred up some controversy by talking about stuff like Russia and Ukraine in the song, and there was some controversy around that, and I'm not really sure what's going to happen now. Some people are saying he's gonna get disqualified, but that hasn't happened thus far. So for all we know, Tommy Cash will be representing Estonia in Eurovision 2025. I'm just not thrilled at the way that he's been treating the contest. So, yeah, from there, let's move on to lmfao from Norway, of course. And Kyle Alexandro has won the national final. This wasn't really a surprise either. I would say the two big contenders were Kyle Alexandro and Nataline. And Nataline was posting a lot of TikToks and stuff saying that I'm going to be performing in the first semifinal and then only to not win the national final at all. So, yeah, there's that. But yeah, it's kind of remarkable, though, because Kyle Alessandro just last year, I think, or the year before that, I can't remember, but he was in the group called Umami Tsunami, but now he's kind of branched out and become his own artist, and he actually performs the song quite well, to his credit. I just don't think the song is that good in general, but again, it's a good production from the Norwegian broadcaster, and so yeah, there's that. So Kyle Alessandro will be representing Norway with the song Lighter. Moving on to Eurovision Daškas LT in Lithuania. Again, the inevitable happened. Catharsis won the national final, again with really no real competition. There were some other names in there that were interesting, I would say. People were concerned that, like, Black Biceps, I think the group were called, some people were concerned that they might accidentally win, or be voted to win by some of their more obsessive fans, but they didn't even get into the super final. So yeah, in the end, Catharsis, or Catharsis, depending on how you pronounce it, I think the band members themselves say catharsis, but some people do say catharsis, including, I think, the announcer in the performances and stuff, or before performances, rather. So take your pick. I say catharsis because it sounds closer to the English catharsis. So yeah, the band Catharsis will be representing Lithuania with the song Tavo Akis, which in Lithuanian means your eyes. Now, just a fun little side note, going back to the mascot, someone tweeted the photo or the image of that mascot with the line Tavo Akis Mato Skausma, which is one of the main lines in the chorus of Tavo Akis, and that line literally translates to "Your eyes see the pain." So yeah, there's that. And sorry, I'm just dunking on the mascot now. Let's move on to San Remo, which is of course the prestigious music festival in Italy. That was actually run by Ollie, followed by Lucio Corsi. However, after a couple of days of deliberating, he decided that he was not going to do Eurovision. But during that time, Lucio Corsi had already expressed that he would like to go to Eurovision if Ollie didn't go, and so he is now going. And we'll talk more about his song a little bit later. But another thing I wanted to talk about was the surprise that Georgia did not end up in the super final. The super final consists of 5 artists, I believe. But some people were really surprised, including the hosts, actually, that Georgia, who, despite winning the televote on multiple occasions throughout the week, actually didn't even make the top 5 at all. Now, I don't get it either. I understand that one of the nights she got a pretty poor televote performance, but she was still in like the top 5 or something like that, so it doesn't make sense that in the end she ended up being 6th. But yeah, it's a kind of maths that I don't have the brain for, or really just the attention for. So yeah, that's an issue. And after the festival, LOD actually did a thing saying that basically women in the music industry in Italy have to work twice as hard as the men in the industry and still not get recognized. So there's an ongoing discussion about things like that in with regards to San Remo and such. So we'll see if that goes anywhere, but I'm not sure that it will. But in the meantime, let's move on to Armenia with their national final, Depi Yevratesil, which was won by Parg with the song Survivor, or as he pronounces it, Survivor, because apparently he likes to cosplay a British schoolboy. But yeah, the song is called Survivor. It was written by like 9 songwriters, including none other than Thomas Gerson. And yeah, he won the national final, followed by Simon with Ai Papareibai, I believe it was called. And then only in third was Athena Manukian. So, despite what it seems to be a concerted effort by the Armenian broadcaster to rig the selection in Athena's favor, she didn't even come top 2. So, yeah, get ready for her to talk about going to Eurovision again for the next 10 years or something like that. So, yeah, moving on to Iceland. Not really much to say. Again, the expected happened. Vibe won the national final, although after seeing the full results, they weren't actually that far ahead of second place. However, they did win in the end, and that's what matters. So Vibe, after having participated last year with the song Biomind, which means movie, is they will now be representing Iceland with the song Roa, which I can't remember what it means, but the song is about apparently rowing. Maybe that's related to the song title, but the song, the music video depicts them talking about rowing a boat to Greenland and the Faroe Islands. So that's something interesting to talk about. And they've also started a YouTube channel, or rather they've always had it, but they've started doing regular uploads on there, including videos with a bass boosted version of Roa in their outro, which is literally one of those Minecraft stock outros. Remember, they're also Gen Z, I think. They might even be younger than me, which is a sobering thought. But yeah, Vibe are representing Iceland in Eurovision 2025. Some people have accused them of copying a song from a certain quote-unquote country, but they say they have responded saying that they've never listened to music from that quote unquote country. So, yeah, that is Songvakeppnin from Iceland. Let's move on to the Heat 4 of Melodifestivalen in Sweden. Now, this heat is special for two reasons, actually. The first one is Måns, of course. A lot of people were hyped for Måns. This former winner coming back 10 years later to potentially go for another win. But after the heat happened, another contestant actually caught the eyes of the public, which are Kai, who are a Finnish group who sing in Swedish. They were actually invited by the director of Melodifestivalen to take part in the national final. They wrote a song. It was sort of adjusted by some of the classic Melodifestivalen songwriters like Anders Wrethov and a few others, but they ended up with a song that's really strongly folky for Melodifestivalen standards, called Bara Bara Basta, which means just take a sauna or something like that. And they are actually from Finland despite speaking Swedish, and this song has gone absolutely viral, not just in my own bedroom but in the bedroom of a lot of people in Sweden and Finland. And I'm not even joking, because it is currently number one in the top 50 Spotify list of both Sweden and Finland. So yeah, it has garnered a lot of attention. It's got 1.1 million views as of recording this video. The performance of their song has got 1.1 million views. In contrast, Måns' performance doesn't even have like 550,000, so that is double of what Måns has got, which is also far ahead from all of the other competitors, but still, their performance and their song has gone rapidly viral. Even other contestants are like doing TikToks where they sing to Bara Bara Basta, and it's just a really infectious song. I'll talk about a little bit more once I get to the national finals, which I'll cover a bit later. In terms of the national finals that haven't concluded yet, but Kai are definitely one to look out for. Moving on the same night, we had Festival de Cancel, which went as planned. However, one significant development was that Capital de Bulgaria did not qualify, even though her song was widely considered by the fans to be one of the best in the entire selection, but she didn't qualify, and some people suspected that it was because of some low viewing figures. They revealed the viewing figures afterwards and it was abnormally low, but some people suggested that might be why she didn't qualify, but that was actually one of the favorites, but now she's out of the running altogether. However, one of the other favorites, Josh, also performed, and a lot of people weren't really thrilled with it either. They were kind of underwhelmed, but some people liked it. I don't really know. I'll be honest, I didn't really watch the full thing, but we'll just have to see what happens, because soon we'll be getting the performance from Henka, which I'll talk about as well in the selection news section. That is what happened in Festival de Cancel, semi-final 1, which is that Capital de Bulgaria did not qualify with her song Lisboa. Moving on to one of the messiest national finals, which is Pesma za Euroviziju in Serbia. Now, if you've been watching the news, you'll know that in Serbia right now there are some massive protests going on, some student-led protests, which are calling for corruption to stop in the government, and RTS is actually considered kind of complicit of that. And I actually watched a video yesterday from the Canadian Eurovision YouTuber Stuart McLean, who explained this in much greater detail than I ever could. So if I remember, I'll link that in the description. But I did watch some of the national final, and oh my god, there was so much AI. There was also a an interval act that wasn't an interval act, but actually the interval act from last year that had to be replayed instead of having a new interval act because so many people, so many artists were withdrawing from the competition. Although there was one highlight, which were Harem Girls, which are a drag group who actually performed in the semifinal, and that kind of stuff is obviously going to generate a lot of controversy in Serbia. Who you might think of as a bit more socially conservative, but they did make it to the final, so we will be seeing Harem Girls perform in the final. So that's one of the good things that happened. But I can also talk about the second semifinal, where we had most of the favorites of the whole competition, and I think it's safe to say that most of them kind of under-delivered in terms of the staging. Some very interesting costume choices and some very unenergetic choreography, let's just say. However, one standout actually is Vukela, who actually brought a song called Mask, and that song is in both Serbian and English, and some people are speculating that this could have a sort of Luke Black effect in that it elevates her to become a lot more well-known within Serbia and maybe even win this election. So we'll see what happens, but Vukela is, I would say, definitely one to look out for, but I'll talk more about that in the selection news section. But of course, the national finals weren't the only things that happened in the month of February, so let's take a look at some of these other things that also happened in the world of Eurovision. First off, Adonis from Czechia decided to do an acoustic cover of his Eurovision entry called Kiss Kiss Goodbye. He did this, actually, for some reason, at the Maltese national final. But he was one of the interval acts for one of the semifinals, and actually it kind of worked out in his favor because before the reveal of the song in the quote-unquote acoustic form, Czechia, I would say, was around 20-something in the odds, but now, as we'll soon find out, they've actually moved up into the top 10. So I think this action actually really worked out in his favor. So basically, it moves Czechia into a higher position, so people who are coming in later in the season will see Czechia being that high and start just kind of betting on them as a matter of principle because it's what the fans, I guess, or more dedicated people who bet on the contest will think are some of the better entries. So it keeps them higher up in the rankings. Of course, that could easily change, but in general, I think that as a strategy actually kind of worked out for them. So, yeah, that's one thing that happened in the Maltese national final. After that, we also had the songs and the artists from Denmark revealed for their national final DMGP, and within the group, we had Tim Shu from 2011. So he's actually back in the national final, although he's not actually a favorite to win, as we'll soon discuss in the selection news section. But yeah, Denmark revealed their national final basically contestants, and yeah, it's not looking very good for them at the moment, I will say, but again, we'll get on to it again later. Moving on to San Marino, where a bunch of names withdrew from the contest and some other names were, for some reason, added in to the semifinals. And one of those that withdrew included the fan favorite Grisana from Ukraine, who basically said that she couldn't afford to keep doing this stuff. So yeah, unfortunately, we will not have Grisana in the San Marinese national final, but it is what it is. At that point in time, we still had Carson Koma from Hungary. However, as we have now found out, they are not in the final either. So yeah, there's still more to come about San Marino, but for now, let's talk about Germany. They had their semifinal. I don't really count this as a national final thing to be reported on because it's all jury at this stage. There's no televote, no nothing until the very, very end. But they had the semifinal where we had one of the fan favorites, and one of my personal favorites actually, Cloudy June. Um, with her song called If Jesus Saw What We Did Last Night. That's the name of the song. It was a good song, and for my money, I thought it was sung pretty well. But considering the content, it's not unsurprising that the jury decided to not let this go through to the final. But what I was surprised about was that the band From Fall to Spring also did not make it to the final because Germans, they love their metal, and they are a metalcore band. However, they didn't make it to the final, which made my Czech friend who really loves From Fall to Spring really upset. But this is Germany; they're famous for shooting themselves in the foot. But speaking of shooting themselves in the foot, Germany also announced a few days ago, suddenly, that there's going to be a super final, in the sense that there's going to be a jury that selects from the remaining 10, and then finally in the super final it will be the public voting. So originally the public was going to be able to vote for all 10 of the acts, but now it's being whittled down even further by the jury to 5. So yeah, I don't know what they're doing. I don't know why they had the massive overconfidence to claim that they could win Eurovision when they just keep, again, shooting themselves in the foot. So yeah, there's that. And there is also one other thing I would say is that they introduced the international televote, which is basically anyone from anywhere can vote for any of the acts in the super final. And I'll talk more about the German national final, but basically I'll just cover like the favorites that are in the final right now, but we'll just have to see what happens. But going back to San Marino now, they announced their finalists before the Sammarinese semifinals were even finished. Now, these are all like pre-recorded, so it doesn't really change anything. But supposedly, the original plan is to broadcast all of the semifinals first, and then broadcast a thing where they announce all of the artists in the grand final of the national final. But hilariously, one of the nights they just completely forgot to broadcast it. So the next day they basically just broadcasted 2 semifinals in a row. And yeah, that's the first time we've had a national final forget to broadcast. This kind of thing could not happen to any country other than San Marino, I swear to God. But yeah, with that, we also got the unfortunate news that Carson Coma have not made it to the national finals grand final. So yeah, we won't have Carson Coma in the final. We won't have much Hungarian representation. But what is interesting is that among the big names in the Sammarinese national final, we have Gabri Ponti with the song Tutta l'Italia. Now, if that sounds familiar to you, that's because that was the theme song for San Remo this year. And yes, Tutta l'Italia means all of Italy, basically. And so it would be just utterly hilarious if a song called All of Italy was representing a country other than Italy. But yes, the theme song of the theme song of San Remo is a competing entry in the national final of San Marino. And the reason I repeatedly say like national final of San Marino or Sammarinese national final rather than actually naming the national final is because they don't seem to know the name of their own national final either. Earlier in the year, they announced that it would change to the San Marino Song Contest, but as of the semifinals that were being broadcast a few days ago, they were still calling it Una Voce per San Marino. So it seems that they don't even know what their national final is called, so we can do no better than to just call it the San Marino National Final or the Sammarinese National Final. So, yeah, after all of that mess, let's move on to another internal country, then that's Australia. They revealed that they will be represented by Gojo with the song Milkshake Man, I think it's called. I have it on the next slide, but I can't be bothered to check it right now. But yeah, Australia revealed their national, sorry, not national final. I wish they had one. But they revealed their internally selected artists, and I'll talk about it a little bit more once we talk about the current selected entries. But yeah, Australia revealed their artist and their song, and actually, literally, as of recording this, right this second, the current Dutch entry for Eurovision 2025 is being revealed. I'm recording this. Well, there's no point talking about it now, but literally as of recording this little segment, the Netherlands is revealing their entry from Claudia, which is called C'est la vie. That's the name of the song. But unfortunately, a day or two ago, the song was already leaked, and Dutch radio stations had already started playing it. So yeah, that's really unfortunate, and it shouldn't happen on such a large scale. Certainly, like it has happened within, like internally within the Eurovision community, but usually it stays here. But in this case, it was actually leaked pretty much nationwide, and it was obtained publicly even before New Zealand had gotten it on Spotify. So, yeah, it's a really unfortunate case of songs being leaked. But yeah, it is officially being revealed right now as I speak. But yeah, the song is called C'est la vie, which I'll take a look at once we take a look at the entries that have been selected from this month. So, with all of that in mind, let's take a look at all of the entries that have either been revealed this month or have won national finals this month to represent their country. Starting with Czechia, where Adonis officially unveiled the quote-unquote acoustic version of Kiss Kiss Goodbye at the Maltese national final. I say quote-unquote because it did sound like it had some production in it, according to the people who have listened to it. I have not. So it's not exactly an acoustic version, but it is a much more stripped down version than what we are to expect. The full song is expected to come out within the next week or two, I think. I'll get more onto that in the selection news section. Moving on to Greece, we had the national final from Greece, which was won by Claudia with the song Asteromata. Then we had France, who revealed that the famous singer Luan will be representing them. Again, more on her later. And then we had Slovenia with the national final EMA, which was won by Clayman with the song How Much Time Do We Have Left, which featured Clayman for some reason being flipped upside down by two of his dancers. And then we also had Belgium with their national final Euro song, which was won by Red Sebastian with the song Strobe Lights. It had a little bit of hype in the odds initially, but that has kind of died down. Then we had Spain with Benidorm Fest, of course, which was won by Melody with the song Esa Diva. I would also like to mention, actually, at this point, that Spain, or more specifically, their national broadcaster RTVE, are actually preparing a proposal to officially call for Israel to be expelled from Eurovision. So there's that, although even taking that in mind, I don't think much will really come of it unless Spain threatens withdrawal or something like that, but it's really not that likely. Moving on though to Azerbaijan, who are being represented by Mama Gama with the song Run With You. And then Ireland has had the national final Euro song, which was won by the Norwegian singer Emmy with the song Like a Party. And then we had Ukraine with the national final Vidbir, which was won by Ziverblot with the song Bird of Prey. Prey spelled Pray, not Prey. Then we have Finland with the national final UMK, or Uuden musiikin kilpailu, which was won by Erika Wikman with the song Ikome. Now, that's a German title, but I'm pronouncing it the way it is pronounced in the song, and they say Ikome and not Ikome. So, yeah, moving on. We have Latvia, who had the national final Supernova, which was won by Tautimeitas with the song Burman Laimi. Then we had Malta, of course, with the national final MESC, which was won by Miriana Conte with the song Kant. Although on the Eurovision channel, it is officially referred to as Kant brackets singing. So moving on, we had Poland with their national final, which was won by Justyna with the song Gaia. That's her full name, by the way, Justyna Steczkowska. But officially, I think her artist name is just Justyna. But yeah, with that, let's move on to Norway, where they had the national final MGP, which was won by Kyle Alessandro with the song Lighter. Then we had the national final from Estonia, which was won by Tommy Cash with the song Espresso Macchiato. And next to Estonia, actually, that's not even true. Between them, there's an entire Latvia. But in the Baltics, staying in the Baltics, we have Lithuania, whose national final Eurovizija Taškas LT was won by the band Katarsis with the song Tavo Akis. And then in Italy, we had the Festival of San Remo, which was actually won by Ollie. However, Ollie declined to go to Eurovision, and that then led to the runner-up, which was Lucio Corsi with the song Volevo essere un duro, to go to Eurovision. And then after that, we had Depi Yevratesil from Armenia, which was won by Parg with the song Survivor, or Survivor. And then we had Selva Kepnin in Iceland, which was won by Vibe with the song Roa. And then Australia revealed that their representative would be Gojo with the song Milkshake Man. And as of recording this segment right now, the Netherlands is revealing their entry from Claude, which is called C'est la vie. And of course, there's also the previous entries, from Montenegro, from Albania, and such. However, A, there isn't much news about them to talk about right now, and B, I just couldn't fit all the entries on one slide, and I didn't feel like starting another slide, so here you are. You're still getting a lot of entries. In fact, I'm pretty sure this is the bulk of the entries of Eurovision 2025. However, there are a few more of them, but for now, let's actually take a look at how all of these entries are doing on the odds as provided, or rather collated, by the website eurovisionworld.com. So here are the Eurovision 2025 winning odds as of late in the evening of February 27th. CET, that is. I'm actually recording this at 3 a.m. local time. But yeah, again, usual disclaimers apply. This is for winning odds, so obviously it's really going to be challenging for Montenegro to win, so it's no surprise that they're at the bottom. This isn't necessarily like a ranking of what people's preferences are. That those can be very different, and closer to the contest, you'll see things like top 10 or best Baltic country or best Nordic country or something like that. But for the time being, we don't have any of that. We only have the winning odds, which have been open since, I would say, about October. So yeah, let's go through these very quickly, one by one. Montenegro, again, not very likely to win the contest. Serbia. Now, I'm going to cover Serbia's national selection in a minute, but yeah, the general feeling is that it's probably not going to win the contest this year. There are a few stronger songs, but none of them are really screaming like Eurovision winner, especially not after we've seen the rather lackluster staging from the semifinals. And with Spain, it's a pretty similar case. No one's really voting for it from abroad. The crazy fans are mostly in Spain. So, yeah, it's been generally accepted that the performance isn't that strong. The vocals aren't that strong, and in general, it's not really expected to do well. But my God, I don't think I've ever seen Spain or any Big Five country, for that matter, at 35th. Ouch. So yeah, not very likely to win Eurovision. Moving on to Iceland. It's a similar case to Montenegro. Really, it's a small country with a song that isn't winning material, so they're not really in the conversation to um, win the contest. I will say, Vibe have a YouTube channel that they've been continuously posting like short videos to, and I think in the previous video they talked about trying to get to 30 third in the odds, and well, they haven't done it, but since then, they actually their ranking has fluctuated a little. It's actually gone down a little bit, but then back up. But hopefully they get to 33rd, so we can get another video from them saying like, "Thank you for betting on us." Hopefully we get to 32 or something like that. But yeah, I've been enjoying the content coming from Vibe during the season, but yeah, probably not very likely to win the contest. Let's be honest. So yeah, moving on to Latvia. Really, a lot of it is the same story. I don't think I want to keep repeating myself at this point. If it's a whole different story, I would say, for the odds to end up in the top 10 versus odds to qualify or to win the contest. So yeah, I'm not really gonna go through a lot of these, despite having previously said that I would. But yeah, I personally would have expected Norway and Armenia to be higher, but maybe that's just me. Croatia, this low does make sense actually. I've seen absolutely zero noise about the Croatian selection. Baby Lasagna really did seem to be a fluke. So it was a very much a one-off thing, and there's not really that many exciting entries this year in Dora. Although I will cover Dora a little bit after the segment. Azerbaijan and Armenia. I think the universe is playing a cruel joke by having them stick together even in the odds. But I don't know. I feel like either of them could qualify or either of them could not qualify. I'm not totally confident. Same with Norway. I would say it's a decent song actually amongst a lot of the entries this year. But yeah, Switzerland at 26 is curious. I would say that's more kind of the host country curse speaking, because we've literally gotten like nothing from the official broadcaster other than the artist announcement date, although I will get to a little something later on. But yeah, I would say they're this low mostly because of the whole host country curse thing. And then above them we have Denmark, which is interesting because I feel like, just instinctively, I feel like Norway should be above that. But I don't know. We'll see what happens. I'll be honest, I have not listened to the Danish songs in the selection. And with Georgia, we've just heard nothing, so no comments. Poland at 23rd. Yeah, no, that sounds about right. Maybe a little bit higher, but that makes sense. Germany at 22nd. Honestly, looking at how much they've shot their feet during the course of the selection, it makes sense. Greece at 21st. I guess that kind of makes sense. We have to see how the staging is elevated for Eurovision, because as it stands, the staging is not very exciting, but the song is good, and hopefully it will qualify. We're not sure yet. Above them, interestingly enough, is Albania. This is huge, actually, because for the vast majority of years of Eurovision years that I've watched, Albania is always 30 something. The fact that people have betted on Albania is significant. For them to be above Greece, to above countries like Norway, that's kind of huge. And some people have said that Albania could win the whole contest. And I mean, I've heard a little bit of Zerm, and I tend to disagree, but you do you. But yeah, it's still huge that people are actually betting on Albania, considering usually they're just ignored and thrown to the bottom of the pile. But yeah, this year's Albanian entry is a little bit different from their usual, and we'll see how well that does in the actual contest. And obviously, I'm going to cover the odds for qualifying as well when those come out, and that is going to be a whole mess, but we'll have to see what happens. Above them is Ireland. That's a curious choice, I would say. The sense that I get from a lot of Eurofans is that the song isn't particularly good, so I'm not sure why is this high, but I haven't heard the song, so I can't really comment. Above them is Lithuania with Catharsis and Davoakis, which I mean, I guess it makes sense, but I do see them going higher. I'm not sure how much higher because a lot of these entries above them do make sense to be in the top 10, but I do see them going higher than 18th at this moment in time, but we'll just have to see what happens. San Marino at 17th, I believe, is entirely because of Gabri Ponti with Tutta l'Italia. I don't think any other entry in the selection is generating this much hype for them to only be 2 places below Italy. For the UK, there is a rumor that is going around that has kind of gone out of control at this point. I'll touch more on that in the next segment. But I don't know about the rumored name, actually, so I don't really have any comments. Italy being 15 is mind blowing, actually. Like, Italy 15th? Like, is the song that bad? Because, like, yeah, there are a lot of people who don't really care for the song that much, at least amongst Eurofans. But I didn't expect that to spread to betting odds. I feel like the betting odds really always favor or sometimes even overrate Italy. But for Italy to drop to 15th in the odds and barely 2 places above San Marino is so bizarre. Likewise, another otherwise Eurovision giant, Ukraine, right above Italy. And again, is it really that bad? Like, okay, it's probably not the best song that could have won Vidbeer, but I still think Zifferblatt held their own. The song is interesting enough, and I don't know if they're going to be that low, but we'll have to see what happens. Cyprus 13 is interesting. You might be surprised about that, considering we don't actually know that much about the song that's being selected, but there are a lot of big names behind the selection and the production, so I think that's part of why why Cyprus has been so high in the odds compared to, say, Greece. And that's because I've covered this before, but LC Bay is part of the songwriter team for this song. Theo Evan has shown himself to be... Is it Theo Evan or Theo Evans? I don't actually know. But he has shown himself to be a pretty competent performer. And it's also been reported previously that Sergio Jaén from, staging the whole of UMK and also Doomsday Blue last year from Ireland, he will actually be staging this, which is going to be interesting. So there are a couple of strong names behind this, which I think is what's contributing to it being this high in the odds, but somehow I doubt it will end up this high. We'll just have to see what happens, though. Above that is Malta. This is interesting because I think for a while Malta was actually in top 10 in the odds. And, gosh, I don't know. I'm conflicted because this could well be another Latvia 2022 situation where it gets hyped a lot by people who enjoy the meme, and then it doesn't even qualify. I don't know. We'll just have to see what happens. But I'll just make it clear that I don't like the song itself. I enjoy the meme. I enjoy the effort that's been put into making the staging look entertaining. But I don't know. Moving on, up actually to the Netherlands in 11th, which honestly feels right. The song's been released for a few hours now, as of recording this particular segment. And to my surprise, it's not a ballad. It's actually sort of an upbeat song. From what I understand, anyway, I listened to about 3 seconds of it. um, but yeah, people are liking it in general, but a lot of them are saying yes, probably not a winner. And I would say that placement, I would say, is probably pretty appropriate. Um, I did read somewhere that the person who did that S10 laser staging thing will be doing the staging for Clouda, so that's going to be interesting. But I wouldn't be surprised if they did end up in the top 10. And speaking of the top 10, let's move into the top 10, starting with Australia. I don't get why they're up there, I'll be honest. The general sense that I'm getting from Eurofans is that I'm enjoying this more than I should. But still, not a lot of people are particularly placing this very highly. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't think it will end up top 10 in the end. Some people think it won't even qualify. We'll just have to find out whether Gojo has the budget for a proper, competent staging. So we'll just have to see what happens there. But I really struggle to see them in the top 10, personally speaking. But moving on to Belgium above them. I would say maybe that's appropriate. I think a lot of people overhyped his potential to win the contest, but now weeks have passed and absolutely no one is talking about this entry. So yeah, my problem with it personally is that it tries too hard to win. It doesn't feel organic as far as a winning song goes. So to me, it doesn't feel like a winner. And yeah, I can see it lower top 10 though. Red Sebastian has good vocals, and the staging is competent enough. So yeah, I can see him top 10, but probably not a winner. Above them is Portugal. I don't know. I haven't actually seen Josh's performance of Tristeza. But according to people who do follow Festival de Cancel, the entire reason that Portugal is this high at all is probably because of Josh and not because of any other entry. I imagine if Henke gets selected, then Portugal will probably go down in the odds, but who knows? So yeah, pretty much this is the bookmakers' placement for Josh. So there's that. I don't know what to comment on it because I haven't listened to Tristeza, nor have I really particularly seen the performance. But there you go. So yeah, that's Portugal. Above that is, in my opinion, one of the most likely countries to win this year. Mark my words. Czechia with Adonis and Kiss Kiss Goodbye. There's been a lot of hype around this, and I think rightly so, because Adonis has proven himself to be a very competent vocalist, both before Eurovision and during the whole Malta MESC acoustic thingy. So he is very competent in terms of vocals. The song also seems to be really strong. He co-wrote with Mayella, if you recognize her from ESCZ, and also Child from Luxembourg. I already talked about this earlier on, but more and more people are starting to recognize the facts now. And personally, I really love Child's non-Eurovision selection stuff. and partially that's because he didn't even write his Luxembourg Song Contest entries. Um, but yeah, I really like Childs' music, and Myla I haven't really listened to, but I trust her. I don't know. But yeah, I think the entry is really gonna be really competent. Um, and I trust Adonis's kind of artistic vision to introduce what he calls a dance break. I would say just a dancing section to the song without it seeming out of place or distasteful. Um, so yeah, I really have hope with this, and I really hope that this will be staged, competently, and maybe next year we'll be going to Prague. There's been quite a few people online saying Prague 2026. So, yeah, I really hope that happens, and I really hope we get a new first time winner because honestly, looking at the countries in the top 10, I think that really is the only first time winner if Czechia does win. Well, Australia is obviously not going to win, but yeah, Czechia, I really have high hopes for them, and I can't wait to listen to the song. And even before we knew that this year was going to be so meh, um, the people from the ESCZ Instagram account said that this song could reach top five, like without even knowing the actual general strength of this year, which turned out to be rather average. So in this rather average year, a top 10 could very well be a top 3 or winner even. I could absolutely see this doing like, I don't know, second in the jury and then fourth in the televote and winning the whole thing that way, or maybe a little bit higher in the televote, who knows. Because there's going to be a lot of televote friendly songs and they're all going to spread out their televote amongst one another. So yeah, I have very high hopes for Czechia. Now moving into the top 5, we have Austria. Now this is very interesting. Now I have a vested interest because now I don't know JJ personally, but JJ is very good friends with Taya, and I have met Taya in person. I'm in a group chat which literally stands Taya and Selena, and with some actual Austrians in there as well. But yeah, I do have a vested interest, but Austria can be very promising this year. I don't think they'll win. I'll be honest. I can see them doing very, very well because JJ has already proven to be a very competent vocalist, but somehow their song his song hasn't leaked yet. Unlike who the hell is Edgar from last year. So yeah, high hopes all around. He's a good vocalist. Taya's a good songwriter. And it's gonna be a song in a kind of popera style that's pop and opera. So some people accused it of being a copy of the Code, but no, the Code is a lot more diverse in genre because that's whereas this is just popera, according to our sources. The Code was a mix of pop, opera, drum and bass, and rap. So yeah, it's very different, and I really wouldn't consider it copying in any significant manner. But we'll see. For now, I don't quite understand why Austria is that high, but I certainly don't mind it. We'll have to see if the song "Wasted Love" will be able to deliver on that front. Above Austria is Estonia, which is very curious. I don't think the song should be anywhere near the top 5, or even top 10, or even top 15. You get the idea. It's not just my personal interpretation of it, it's the fact that even for Tommy Cash standards, the song isn't that good. Like, he has created much better songs according to people who actually follow and like Tommy Cash's other work. But this song, to even dedicate it Tommy Cash fans just feels like a mockery of Eurovision. So, um, what it's doing here, I really don't know. I know even less why he had nightclub bouncers for his dancers at Estilal, but yeah, I absolutely do not think this should be up here, and hopefully we'll see Austria maybe overtake Estonia soon in the odds, but we'll just have to see what happens. But for the meantime, I really struggle to see Estonia even reaching the top 10 because very few people outside of Estonia, or I guess the general Nordic slash Baltic region, have really heard of Tommy Cash. But oh well. Moving into the top three, we have Finland. Honestly, I would say that's about right. I would think Erika Wigman isn't going to win Eurovision, but could stand to do very well with the televote especially. But we'll have to see what happens. I don't think she's winning the contest. If she did, I wouldn't mind because, Tampere is a wonderful place for hosting Eurovision. I think they've already proven that they do UMK very, very well. Hell, I've been there. I know how good it is. Even though I would say their accommodation might not be enough for hosting Eurovision, but the arena is top notch. Their facilities in the arena and the way they arrange for different people to go to different places, it's very competent indeed. So, yeah, Tampere is a nice city as a Eurovision host city, but if I'm gonna be honest, I don't think Erika Wigman is winning the contest, but third place sounds about right. Above them, we have Luan, which I find kind of curious. I think France will stand to do very well indeed, because there are so many fun songs already in the competition, and there might stand to be even more coming. But Luan is actually, I'll talk about that in the next section. But in terms of the genre of what Luan is possibly sending to the contest, she could do very well with the jury, and I don't think she was gonna win because this might have a little bit of a disconnect with the televote, but we'll see. This going to be yeah, I'll get onto it later, but yeah, I don't think Luan is going to win Eurovision necessarily, but I think she could stand to do very well. And of course, at first place, we have Sweden, and that is, of course, entirely due to Mons. If they did select Kai, I think they would go down a spot or two, but still be relatively high. I will explain more on my excitement for Kai in the next segment. But yeah, that's Sweden. Their leading place in the odds is entirely due to Mons. But speaking of Sweden and Mons, let's look at the odds for Melody Festivalen. First off, let's look at the Heat 5 real quick. I don't have much comment on it. I've seen some of the staging photos. Scarlett is definitely going direct till final, but I don't know about any of the other entries, and I don't honestly particularly care. But yeah, so Scarlett is going through, but I would say no one here, other than maybe Scarlett, is really challenging for the win in the entire national final. But yeah, that is Heat 5. We just got rehearsal photos today, actually, and there's some really interesting ones coming from Scarlett. There's one photo which has kind of a purple background, but another one is green. So yeah, someone commented Agatha Rio stuff. If you know, you know. But let's move on to the final of Melody Festivalen. It's gonna be interesting because from a lot of these, we're still waiting on the the second chance round, because a lot of these are actually from the second chance round. Like Mira Omar, for example, is in the second chance, and also I can't even remember. I think yeah, I've no clue. Mira Omar is in the second chance, and some others are in as well. But yeah, Mira Omar has actually gone kind of viral for Hush Hush. Uh, but yeah, unsurprisingly, Mons is the big favorite because he's got name recognition and he's got the juries on his side. But there is Kai. This is an odds review section, so I'm not really going to talk about it. But yeah, I would say this top five is probably going to be the final top five in some shape or form. I don't think that's going to change, and I think yeah, these five are the ones challenging for the win. Personally, I would put Scarlet lower, maybe. Yeah, I would say in terms of the realistic chances of winning, I would say Mons, Kai, Clara Hammerstrom, Gressela, and then Scarlet. In terms of the top five, but these five I do believe will be the final top five in the final. So yeah, we can look at these odds, but there's not really much to talk about here. Let's look very quickly on let's look very quickly at DMGP. Sisal is the big favorite. I'll talk about this a little later. For Dora, the favorite is apparently Magazine, but Organ is also a favorite. But it depends on who you ask, really, because there's not a lot of hype surrounding Croatia right now, and this is just one bookmaker. Other bookmakers could have significantly different results, and so that is about it for my odds review as of late February. In the next episode, I'm of course going to take a look at the odds as well and kind of see how they've changed over time compared to this episode. But yeah, that is about it for the odds for late February. It's finally time for the long-awaited selection news. Now, in earlier episodes, I was talking about either internal selections or national finals of which we didn't have the songs yet, but nonetheless had the names, so we were talking about favorites based on pure speculation. But now most of the national finals have already wrapped up, so I thought it would be interesting to look at the remaining national finals in a little bit greater detail and look at the favorites now that we do know the songs and, for most cases, the performances, and who's our favorites versus who's most likely to realistically win the national selection and represent their country in Eurovision. We might also discuss the conditions surrounding the national final, which usually it doesn't matter as much. The politics doesn't really affect national finals that much. However, in the case of Serbia, our first entry on this list, it really does matter because as I mentioned earlier in the video, I talked about some protests that were happening in Serbia, and they have been happening for like 2 months now at this stage, but they are still as strong as ever. They're student-led protests, and they've been happening all over Serbia, north to south, and this has directly impacted the credibility of RTS as a public broadcaster, because obviously RTS is the official broadcaster, the state broadcaster of Serbia, and so they directly are viewed as parroting the line of the Serbian government, and they are not really positively covering the protests, for example, or the reason behind said protests. And in fact, the final of Pesma za Euroviziju, the national final, was meant to be on the 1st of March. However, it was later announced that on the 1st of March, there's going to be a big protest in the city of Niš, and because of that, they've actually moved the final of the national final forward to this Saturday, I believe, or they've just moved it forward anyhow. So yeah, it has been materially affected by the protests, and several people have also withdrawn from the organization of the national final, including even one of the potential presenters for the whole show. Now, there haven't been that many withdrawals from the national final proper, from like contestants and such, but the understanding is that it's just too expensive for them to do so for most cases. However, there has been one name that I don't know if they were disqualified or they were kicked, but there was a band or group or something like that called Butch Cassidy. Yes, that comes from the English Butch Cassidy, but yeah, the group or duo or whatever, Butch Cassidy, actually withdrew from the national final. Not many are expected to follow. And I actually read a thing from Philip Baloch. He's not participating this year, but he did put a statement kind of supporting his friends from the industry who are actually competing in the national final. Essentially, again, it's just that they just don't have the money to waste to withdraw from the national final. But yeah, in addition to the presenter that withdrew, there was also I think a director who also refused to work on the national final, and like I mentioned earlier, there was an entire interval act that refused to perform, making them have to replay an old interval act from the previous years. And yeah, they even have to like AI generate a lot of the postcards for the national final, which I guess really goes to show uh how lacking in resources they are this year for the national final. And that's just from our perspective as Euro fans. Again, Stuart McLean has made a much more detailed video where he actually talks to a kind of Serbian Euro fan who knows a lot more about the situation than we might do from the outside. So yeah, he's made a great video. Again, if I remember, I'm gonna link it in the description. I actually just watched it yesterday, and yeah, it's a great insight into what's really going on in the national final and who are some of the front runners and how this might affect the final result of who is representing Serbia. Because if they win the national final, they are representing not only Serbia, but also the broadcaster RTS, and that could be a difficult choice to make for some of these artists who might be more outspoken about supporting the students in this protest. But yeah, speaking of that, let's actually now get onto the competing entries. The first and one of the bigger favorites is Turbo Žurka, and that's sung by Mimi Mercedes. And yeah, that was performed last night for me as of recording this. The staging was kind of underwhelming. Her outfit was interesting. And yeah, but otherwise, this song and also her kind of general popularity in Serbia makes people think that she is actually the favorite, because her song actually is the most like viewed on YouTube as well and stuff like that. And Žurka means like a party, so Turbo Žurka, apparently, according to Mimi Mercedes, is more like about what was the word? Party nationalism or patriotism or something like that. I think that was the word, patriotism, party and patriotism. But I'm not really sure what that means. But in terms of Serbia, Belgrade is considered a kind of party capital of Serbia. But yeah, that's just some of the stuff I got from the Stuart McLean video. But yeah, this is one of the big favorites. However, I would say her performance last night was rather underwhelming. She didn't really dance that much. The camera cuts were not that sharp, and yeah, I'm not sure how this is gonna win. But what we do know is that Turbo Jurka just today has been placed in second in the running order. Um, so good luck with that. But speaking of that, let's move on to another favorite, which is Durum Durum, sung by, I believe her name is it's got three letters. The letter in the middle is A. It's, I think she's called like uh Dam or something like that. TAM. Um, and yeah, she's singing a song that's allegedly ethnic, but not so much Serbian ethnic, but rather prehistoric Slavic ethnic or whatever that means. And durum, you might it sounds like the sound of like playing a drum and stuff like that, of course, but also durum, even in English, is a kind of wheat flour. So well, it's a kind of wheat that is commonly made into flour. Durum wheat flour, I think, is also very commonly used in Italy as well, for making like pizza and stuff like that. I'm not even joking, by the way. I have watched my fair share of cooking videos, but yeah, Durum Durum is a kind of ethnic sounding song. But again, I watched it last night, and the staging was underwhelming. Um, Again, the camera cuts are just not sharp enough. But on this third one, I think is interesting. It's Mask by Vukela. Now, Vukela is a relatively new artist. She's a newcomer to the scene. I think she only started making music like last year or something. But she's already gotten some popularity, and some people are speculating that she could maybe have a sort of Luke Black moment. That is, that she gets really popular off of Pesmanza Eurovisio and gets to go to Eurovision because of that, and garners even more national and international popularity. And to her credit, I would say, in terms of the songs that I watched, I would say that actually her staging was the most competent. She actually has a bunch of dancers in like kind of boxes dancing at first, and then in this second or third verse, they break out and then they do a very interesting dance around her. And so yeah, the song is also one of the few, I would say, in terms of the front runners, that are both in Serbian and in English. So that's an interesting thing. But again, like with Turbo Jurka, it's been announced today that her running order slot is well, third. So yeah, again, good luck with that. Durum Durum is a bit later in the running order. I think like 8th or 10th or something like that. So maybe that's the favorite of the Serbian broadcaster RTS, but we'll just have to see what happens. That was probably way too much commentary for Serbia, but yeah, moving on to Denmark, where of course we have the MGP. And yeah, the general sense is that it's a little better than the usual standard, but there still isn't really one that could, quote unquote, lead them to victory per se. So yeah, there's that. But the big favorite, and this has always been the favorite from the start, is Seasol with the song. I can't actually remember the name of her song, but yeah, Seasol is the big favorite and always has been, really. So I think we should probably just expect her to win the MGP this weekend. So yeah, that's Denmark, and I would say there really isn't much else to point out. The quality is, again, a little bit better. Some people call it better than MGP, but at the end of the day, I think the main takeaway is that neither of them are particularly good this year. But yeah, moving on to Germany, where we have the national final Chefsache ESC, which again literally translates to chief thing Eurovision. I don't know what that means, but we do have still some credible entries in what remains of the final. I would say the first one is Feuerschwanz. That's a kind of metal band that a lot of people are attracted to. And another one is Arbor und Tina, or Abo und Tuna. Um, they are a duo who previously released a song called Vinnetou, which was very interesting because it had a verse in Hungarian. However, the song they brought to the national final, or the song that they purportedly were only allowed to bring to the national final, because I think they said somewhere that this was actually not their first choice or even second choice to send to the national final, but the song that they ended up being allowed to bring to the national final is actually currently a favorite amongst Eurofans. I'm not so sure about the general public, but it is actually trending on Spotify in Germany. So maybe that's a good sign, but we of course have to account for the older voters who obviously don't use Spotify. But I would say these two are kind of the big favorites. And if one of them is eliminated in the jury round in the final, then I'm pretty confident that the other is going to win, but we'll just have to see what happens. For now, I would probably support Abo und Tuna because their song is actually in German, so that's really nice. It's a nice change of pace, I would say. But from there, let's move on to Croatia, which of course is doing their national final. Dora, and actually, as of recording this, Dora is currently ongoing. The first semifinal of Dora is happening as I'm recording this, and you can probably guess how much I care to watch it by the fact that I'm recording this instead of watching it. But there's a handful of favorites. There's Lelek, there's Ogen, there's Magazine, and to some people, Marko Bošnjak. Interesting thing about Marko Bošnjak, though, his song this year is very different in genre to previous songs that he sent to the national final. I think it's a kind of more gay bop type stuff compared to his previous entry called Molizanas, which was a kind of more classical ballad, I would say. But some people consider him a favorite, but other people are looking at mostly both in terms of good songs and realistic favorites. Lelek, Ogen, and Magazine, I would say. Especially Lelek, I would say, is a Eurofan fan favorite. Their song is in English, but they do also have a version entirely in Croatian, and some people were hoping that they sing that instead of their current English one. But Lelek are similar to Tautumetas and to the earlier Harmonia Dissonante, which basically means they're 6 women in a group who are competing to go to Eurovision. We'll see how that goes, but the Eurofan favorite would be Lelek, but the bookmakers put the main favorite as Magazine, and Ogen is also close behind, although there are reports that Ogen are very strongly homophobic, so there's that, so that's fun. That's really about it for Croatia. Moving on to Sweden, of course, we have Melodifestivalen. This year in Melodifestivalen, we have a very interesting dilemma. Now, I'll quickly go through the other 3 who aren't that likely to win. Clara Hammerström, valiant effort, but you've been overshadowed. Scarlett as well. Gressula is an interesting newcomer, and that is how you pronounce it, apparently. If you're wondering where that name comes from, it's a Hungarian surname, actually, and CZ in Hungarian is pronounced T, but I guess that T sound doesn't really exist in Swedish, so he actually pronounces it as Gressula. Gressula, Scarlett, and Clara Hammerström, valiant efforts. And I would say some of their songs are really, really interesting with pretty powerful stagings as well. Even just seeing some of the photos in the case of Scarlett. But the main battle people are talking about is Måns versus Kai. Now, this is really interesting. On one hand, you have Mons, who obviously won Eurovision in 2015. He knows his way around the camera, he knows his way around the microphone, and he knows how to deliver a slick, well-produced Swedish pop hit, as it were. And this time, his song is called Revolution, and he's got sort of waves of I guess they're supposed to be like mountains or something like that, but according to people who have seen the set piece in real life, they said that it looks more like a vagina. I'll let you come to your mind as to which one of those it really looks like. He's got the performance on YouTube. You can just watch it. But yeah, Mons is singing a very highly produced pop song, Swedish pop song, that's very generic in terms of just like you can change the world or whatever. But yeah, that is Mons. But he performs the song well. The camera cuts are sharp, and so because of that, people are touting him as a winner of Melody Festivalen and potentially the entire contest, which is interesting because he was actually asked about this and he says that he's not going to win Eurovision, which for once I agree with him on something. But yeah, Mons is the kind of main one to beat, I would say, definitely. And unfortunately, I don't think Clara Hammerström or Scarlett or Gressla have any chance of doing that. I'll be honest. Even just in the jury alone, I think they're screwed. But the opponent here is a very different story. Now, no one expected this to happen. I think even the organizers themselves didn't expect this to happen. But Mons' main opponents right now actually came from the same heat as Mons himself, which are a Finnish group called Kai. Now, the name Kai is derived from the initials of the three members. I can't remember all of them. I think they're called Kevin, Axel, and I can't remember the J one. But yeah, it's derived from the initials of the three members' names, and they're actually, like I said, a Finnish group. They're part of the ethnic minority in Finland that are Swedish speaking. They actually have like Finnish citizenship, but they speak Swedish. They speak a special dialect of Swedish that's called Finno-Swedish, or some people call it Austro-Bothnian Swedish. But yes, they speak a dialect of Swedish called Finno-Swedish, and they make music that's kind of folky sounding. And this year, they have, with the help of some classical Melody Festivalen names like Anders Wrethov, they have come up with a song called Bara Bara Basta. And even just saying that is fun. And that title literally translates to just take a sauna. And that's really the entire message of the song. They're Finnish by nationality and by kind of mentality, I suppose. So they basically wrote this song to advocate for people to go go take a sauna, go do the sauna, basically to relieve the stress at the end of the day. But yeah, it's a really catchy song. It's a song that's very easy to hum along to, even if you don't speak Austro-Bothnian Swedish. I just wanted to say the word Austro-Bothnian. But yeah, it's a really catchy song, and even the staging is really fun as well. And they've got dancers who initially dressed like lumberjacks, but then they changed the entire set piece at the back, and then the dancers come back out dressed like they're supposed to be in a sauna. They're dressed with basically kind of bath towels wrapped around them, but they're still dancing. So I imagine there's some sort of set piece or some sort of clip behind them that allows them to dance without the towel, falling off. So yeah, it's a very interesting piece and a very fun one at that, so much so that it has become very rapidly the most viewed Melody Festival in 2025 performance. Um, as of recording this, I think it has 1.2 million views. And as of recording this, it's also only been approximately 4 days since the actual um, the heat of Melody Festival, or 5 days or something like that. And just for comparison, the next most viewed performance is from Mira Omar that I talked about earlier in the odds. She's actually in the second chance round, ironically enough, but yeah, the second place most viewed performance of a contestant. That is Mira Omar, and then after that is Mons. I think Mira Omar has roughly 670,000 views, while Mons is around 550 or something like that. In any case, it's less than half of what Kai has for views, and let's not even mention some of the entries that didn't qualify. But yeah, you can see that Kai have taken Sweden and Finland by storm. Bada Bada Basta is currently number one in both the top 50 charts of Sweden and Finland on Spotify, and it's probably just going to grow even further. So yeah, if you're looking at that and you're still wondering why Mons is still so high in the odds, well, the short answer is juries. But it's an interesting thing because obviously you don't think the juries are going to vote for this kind of folky, goofy type song. But first off, I think they could, because like all other Melody Festival entries, this has really good camera cuts, really sharp camera cuts, as do pretty much every single entry in Melody Festival. And so it's got that slickness of Swedish production, but it's also got the fun and the folkiness that allows it to go as viral as this. And in fact, I saw a video earlier of none other than Mira Omar herself, with her husband, I think, dancing along to Bara Bara Basta. So, yeah, it's a big phenomenon right now in Sweden and Finland. I've even seen people say that they're going into work and they just hear their coworkers humming the song. So yeah, it's really big right now in Sweden and Finland, and yeah, it's a big thing. And I would say, personally, for my money, I do actually see a path for Kai to win, because you know the jury is naturally going to be led towards more produced entries. So I would say, Mons, Clara Hammerström, Scarlett, Gressula, maybe not Scarlett, but yeah, Scarlett, Gressula, Clara Hammerström, and Mons are the ones that they're going to gravitate towards. But between them, they're going to really split the jury vote. On the other hand, there's no real competition in terms of virality for Kai, really. Some people would say Mons, but I would say Mons might have a better chance with the older age groups. But with especially the younger age group, I think a lot of them are going to be drawn towards Kai. So I would say Kai has actually a pretty good chance of winning, but we just have to see what happens. Some people argue that they're not going to win because Swedes want to win Eurovision, and Kai aren't going to do that because there's already a lot of like upbeat entries this year. But honestly, I don't think that really matters that much. I think the important thing here is to try to get the Swedish public to be kind of more open-minded in terms of the songs that they send to Eurovision. They don't have to always send songs like Heroes or Tattoo, so highly produced stuff. You can have some fun once in a while. You can have a boogie once in a while, as it were. So yeah, this is a very long rant at this point, but I do think that Kai has a pretty good chance of winning the national final in Sweden, and as such, we will get our first Swedish entry actually in Swedish for the first time since 1998, and it's going to be sung by a Finnish group of all things. So, yeah, we have to see what happens, but if you ask me, I am absolutely on the Kai train, and I'm not getting off anytime soon. So, with that said, let's move on to Portugal. I've already talked about this earlier, but basically, the big favorite is Josh with the song Tristeza. I will say Josh is a very funny name for someone who's not from an English-speaking country, because imagine a Eurovision winner called Josh, right? And they're not from like the UK or Ireland or Australia. It's just funny, but he's got a song called Tristeza, which is capturing the imaginations of a lot of people. I haven't listened to it. I haven't listened to half the entries this year, but Josh is one of the favorites. Another favorite I would say is Henka, because Henka is bringing something really different to everyone else. We tend to think of Portugal as sending songs that are kind of slower in the Portuguese language, kind of ballad type stuff. But Henka is bringing a song called I Wanna Destroy You. That's spelt in all caps, and U is spelt as the letter U, not YOU. And the entire song is in English as well, from what I understand. But it's something very different for Portugal, and they could send that, although I think, and I really suspect that the current odds favorite, the reason that Portugal is so high in the odds right now is probably not because of Henka, but rather because of Josh. But we'll just have to see what happens. We could have another Capital de Bulgaria situation where Henka doesn't even make the final, but we'll have to see what happens. Moving on to San Marino, where they still don't have a solid national final name. I don't have much else to say, really. It's Tutta l'Italia by Gabri Ponte, which is the the theme song for San Remo. So we could have the theme song for San Remo competing in Eurovision, not for Italy. So it's also surreal from the perspective of San Marino, and also there's Bessa, who's for some reason listed as being from France. Apparently she lives in France, but she's obviously Albanian. And her song is apparently AI generated, so that's fun. But I would say those are really the only two names worth talking about. There are some other names in there, but I think those two are the only two that are worth any attention. Not necessarily positive attention, mind you, but Gabri Ponte and Bessa. What a bizarre national final. Moving on from national finals, we move on to internal selections. Starting with France, of course, they're being represented by Luan. We'll talk more about kind of the song release dates in the next section, but what we have gotten in terms of news and like genre and stuff is that the song will be a powerful ballad about her mother. And this is actually not all that surprising because one, Luan is known for his singing ballads, and two, in the kind of reveal video, the presentation video of Luan, she was talking about how her mom really liked Eurovision and wanted her to go to Eurovision, and so basically what she is doing now is fulfilling the dreams of her probably now past mother. But that is basically the idea, and like I said earlier, because there are so many upbeat songs this year, I think this could really easily do well with the jury. I would say this is the jury win is a battle between France and, believe it or not, Czechia, I would say. So I could absolutely see Czechia win Eurovision by being second in the jury, and doing decently well in the televote, and boom. But I don't think France will win the contest. They might come very close, but I don't think Luan is winning. That's just a hunch. I may very well be wrong in 3 months, but we'll have to see what happens. From France, we move to their geographical neighbor and historical rival, the UK. There's been one name that's been going around for the last few weeks now, and that is a group called Remember Monday. Um, I just realized that on my slide I wrote "Remember Monday?" question mark, which makes it sound like I'm posing a question about whether you remember the day of Monday. But no, the group are called Remember Monday. And their name has been passed around a lot now, to the point where people are starting to wonder whether it's actually not them, because the BBC hasn't said anything about it. But yeah, the UK are allegedly being represented by a girl group called Remember Monday, which is composed of three contestants on The Voice or something like that, or Britain's Got Talent or something like that. But yeah, it's not looking good in terms of the talent and the fame that they've got. But one thing that is interesting is that they are allegedly bringing a country style song. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. Maybe it's something more like cont'd Soul from Iceland, if you remember that. But it's maybe something like that. It's maybe something a little bit more like bluegrass. I don't really know. But yeah, that's the name that's been going around. Remember Monday for the United Kingdom. Speaking of rumored names and countries that don't need to qualify in the semis, we of course have the host country, Switzerland, and the rumor here is that they will be represented by Joya Marlene. Now, we don't know much else about that. We only know the name, Joya Marlene. She has a decent decently sized back catalog that you might want to listen to if you're interested. But that is the name that's going around. It's been going around for a few days now. And regardless of whether that is the name or not, it will be presented in a few days as of recording this, in approximately a week or so. But with that said, let's take a look, actually, at exactly what will happen in the next few weeks with regards to Eurovision and with the final entries being confirmed for the contest. Okay, so I forgot I actually made the slide, but it's here now, so I'm gonna go with it. I'm gonna try to do a very quick and probably very inaccurate early prediction for all of the qualifiers. Now that we've got a better idea of what most of the entries sound like, genre-wise in relation to the other entries in the semi. So yeah, with the first semi, I'm gonna start counting on my fingers in case I count more than 10 or less than 10. I think Sweden's definitely qualifying no matter what they send, really. And honestly, same with Ukraine as well. They know how to stage, and I think they can sell a package even if the song maybe isn't as strong as some of the previous songs. I think it's definitely qualifying. After that, I would say Estonia is qualifying purely based off of Tommy Cash's name. Portugal is qualifying if they send Josh, or really if they send anyone. I think, again, Portugal is another country which knows how to do tasteful stagings these days. And then in the second half, I'm not necessarily done with the first half yet, but I would say Belgium's definitely a qualifier. Albania is definitely qualifying. Cyprus is definitely qualifying. They might not do well in the final, but they are definitely qualifying, in my opinion. And that leaves us with 3 more countries. I would say Netherlands qualifies because they've got good staging clues. And then after that, I would say is kind of wishy-washy. We've got 2 more slots, I would say. I think we can immediately rule out Slovenia from qualifying. No offense. But I would say for the rest, it's pretty open, especially for San Marino, if they send, Totalitalia. yeah, I think the last three is going to be between Poland, San Marino, and Norway. So I'm not going to choose between those three, but the two of those three will qualify for the final. I have an inkling towards Poland and Norway because they're just bigger countries, and even if it is Tutalitalia, the only country that actually cares for Tutalitalia is, well, Italia, and I don't know if Italy can vote in the semi, but even if they could, it doesn't make as much of a difference as you think. But yeah, I would lean towards Poland and Norway, but I'm by no means sure of those decisions. So yeah, that is the first semifinal. For the second semifinal, we have an interesting phenomenon where we're only going to have nine qualifiers. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. So again, I'm gonna hold on my fingers to count up to nine. I think Austria is definitely qualifying. Lithuania is going through pretty easy. Uh, Czechia is definitely going through. Finland's definitely going through. I would say Luxembourg's definitely going through because of, if nothing else, genre standouts. And then after that, I would say is kind of I in the previous recording I said slim pickings. I feel like that's a little bit harsh, but yeah, there's a lot of entries here that I think standard wise blend into each other. So it's kind of hard to say who's gonna qualify from this bunch. Um I think Armenia's gonna qualify. Just because there's a powerful diaspora in the UK, in Ireland as well, and I believe both of those are in the semi. Um, so I think Armenia's going through. Greece is probably going through, I would imagine, and that leaves us with two more. Hmm, it might be challenging. I struggle to see how Latvia could qualify as much as I enjoy their entry. Uh, I really hope they qualify, but at the moment, as it stands, I don't see that happening. Um, okay, I would say Malta, and then the last one is between Latvia and Georgia. So yes, that means Serbia doesn't qualify, and despite Montenegro being able to vote for them. And honestly, I think that outcome is probably what a lot of people in Serbia watching from home would want to happen. Serves them right for representing RTS, the national broadcaster. But yeah, let's just very quickly recap for the second semifinal. I think the qualifiers will be Austria, Lithuania, Armenia, Greece, Czechia, Malta, Finland, Luxembourg, and then one between Latvia and Georgia, depending on what Georgia sends. So yeah, those are my qualifiers for not my personal qualifiers. I haven't listened to all of these songs yet, even, but I have an idea of what the songs are supposed to sound like, and so I'm making very primitive predictions based on those. And yeah, that's about it for my predictions. Let's come back in 2 months to see how utterly wrong I got these predictions. The time has now come to ask the $1,000,000 question: what's next? Well, what's next are the remaining national finals, of which there really aren't that many left. In fact, as of recording this, the first semifinal of Dora, the Croatian national final, just ended, and all of the favorites that were in the semi that I just mentioned, Leilek and some of the other ones as well. They all went through. I think it was Leilek and Magazine that were in this semifinal, and both of them went through. So the debate doesn't really change in terms of the favorites to win. So yeah, that happened today, and also we had the presentation of Cloud's entry today. So those are the things that happened today, and tomorrow, or actually for me, it's today as we're recording this. we will have the final of Pesma za Eurovision. Now, I mentioned earlier it was originally going to be the 1st of March. However, it was moved forward because it coincides with a massive protest and they don't want the two events to coincide. Because it could like disrupt either viewership or even operations and broadcasting and stuff like that. But we'll see what happens. In any case, the national final for Serbia will conclude on the 28th, which again is today for me. Hopefully, I'll get the video up by today. But it will be tomorrow if you're watching this on the day of recording, or rather at the time of recording. It is still the 27th in Europe. But yeah, we're going to have the national final for Serbia. And then the day after that, basically on the 1st of March, we're going to have several national finals take place. Two of them will be concluding. That's the national final for Denmark, DMGP, and the national final for Germany, which is Chef Sache EST. And we're also going to have Heat 5 from Melodifestivalen. Of course, we're going to have Scarlett perform. And we're also going to have the second semifinal for Festival de Cancel, where Henka will be performing her song called I Wanna Destroy You. So those are definitely songs to look out for this Saturday. And then after that, literally the day after that, we will be having the final of Dora. So I'm not sure why they decided to do the national final on the Sunday, but it's their choice to make. But yeah, 4 days after that, we will finally have the song from JJ. Remember, it's called Wasted Love, and it's described as a kind of popera song, and there's quite a bit of hype surrounding it right now. But yeah, there's that, and then the day after that, we'll be having the song from Adonis being released officially on streaming platforms and such. Remember, it's called Kiss Kiss Goodbye, and I believe actually the song ends with the words Kiss Kiss. So yeah, that's going to be really interesting. I think we are genuinely looking at a potential winner in the making, a Eurovision winner in the making, but we'll just have to see what happens with that. I am really excited. But yeah, the day after that, we will be getting the conclusions to Melodifestivalen, Festival de Cancel, and San Marino national final. So that's gonna be interesting as well. I've already talked about some of the favorites that are in those national finals. Who knows? Gabri Ponte might not even win in San Marino, and we'll be getting Bessa or someone else that we've not been paying attention to at all. But yeah, we're gonna have Melodifestivalen, Festival de Cancel, and the national final for San Marino on the 8th of March. And 2 days later, we will be getting officially the artist announcements for Switzerland, as well as the reveal of their song at 10 a.m. CET, or 10 a.m. Swiss time, which I think is CET. So yeah, it will be on the 10th at 10 a.m., which is going to be interesting. And then at pretty much the deadline of submitting songs to the EBU, Luan will be premiering her song for Eurovision at the Stade de Bâle, I think, the Stade de France. I can't remember. So one of those two during I think a kind of interval act for some sports thing. I can't even remember, but it's going to be to a massive audience. So yeah, we better look out, I guess. But those are just the ones that we do know about. And again, Luan is pretty much doing it on the day of the deadline, because the deadline tends to be mid-March, basically, for submitting songs to the EBU. But we still don't know when Theo Evans' song will come out. And we don't even know the artists for the UK or Georgia. Again, for the UK, it's strongly rumored that it's going to be Remember Monday, but this still has yet to be officially confirmed or denied by the BBC. And for Georgia, I've talked about Nini Iris, but again, they've just been really silent about everything, so we don't really know what's going on. There's a chance that the broadcaster will instead choose someone that's pro-Russian, but we'll just have to see what happens with that. And that is gonna do it for this episode. I definitely yapped for far longer than I had hoped to do, but I do hope that you found some of my yapping entertaining or informative or something like that. I hope you enjoyed the video. Like this video if you did enjoy it. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss upcoming episodes of Rigel's Random Reports. And I'll see you next time.